Welcome, everyone. Welcome to New Art, New Vision, New World. Good evening and welcome. Can see people are joining now. Thank you for joining. Great to see you. Participants are going up. Fantastic. Great to see you. Thank you very much for joining. Okay, and we can see that number increasing now. Good evening and welcome. Hello. We'll just give people one more minute to join, but in the meantime, I'd like to welcome everyone and introduce myself. I'm Vanessa Dal Busco, Ambassador for AYITI Gallery and founder of True Ledger. Please let us know where you're dialing in from today by typing in the chat box. So we can see attendees coming in now, and do let us know what you do too. So pop your LinkedIn profile in there. We can see more people joining and we'll begin shortly. But while we are waiting for more attendees to join, there are two ways you can engage today. Many of you have already discovered the chat function, so we recommend you change the audience to say all panelists and attendees. Hello, Helen. Great to see you, Helen from London. So when you change the chat to say all panelists and attendees, you can interact with each other too. If you have a question for the panel, please put it in the Q&A box. We recommend you use the Q&A function because we'll not be checking the chat for questions. Okay, and you should be able to like the questions that are your favorites. That makes sure we answer the questions that you want answered. Questions into Q&A, go in there and like your favorites. Interact in the chat. This session is being recorded. And now for our agenda. Next slide, please, Adelina. In 2020, the world has changed. We want more light, love, and hope. We want more diversity, equity, and social impact. This evening, we come together with 4 speakers to uncover the personal and societal value of art appreciation and art investing, how art can change the lives of investors by providing emotional and mental wealth, and of artists by providing a means to become financially independent. We're here to get people talking. We invite you to engage with us and take part in the discussion tonight and beyond by connecting with us on LinkedIn and at future events. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. Next slide, please, Adelina. Our first speaker this evening is a French entrepreneur, activist, and humanist, and the founder of AYITI Gallery. He's advised the Red Cross, Oxfam, the UN, and other humanitarian organizations on emergency programs in more than 30 disaster-prone countries across the world, helping thousands of people to prepare for disasters. In 2010 in Haiti, he miraculously survived the massive earthquake. This had a major impact on his life and vision. In Haiti, he fell in love with Haitian art. So in 2016, he started AYITI Gallery to share his passion for Haitian contemporary art and support living Haitian artists. He imported over 200 artworks, which he showed in more than 220 exhibitions and art fairs in London. AYITI is a Haitian fine art gallery and social enterprise with an e-commerce platform that represents 7 amazing artists. The relaunch of AYITI Gallery is an innovative and immersive marketplace to raise awareness of and empower thousands of talented artists in the Caribbean, Africa, Latin America, Asia, and Oceania. Welcome, Alexandre Latour. Our second speaker has over 15 years experience in digital and marketing strategy for Fortune 100 companies and startups globally. Born in Kinshasa in the Dominican Republic of Congo and raised between there and Belgium, she developed a passion for art from a young age, raised by parents who taught her the love of art and how important it is to support artists and culture. In 2020, after a successful international career in 4 continents and 8 countries, she founded and launched Pavillon 54, a one-stop digital platform and community around modern and contemporary art from Africa and the diaspora. Pavillon 54's goal is to build a strong global ecosystem that can support sustainable development of the African art market by increasing artists' exposure, investing in education, and expanding the collector base. Prior to founding Pavillon 54, she held leadership positions in financial services, fintech, and martech industries, working for prestigious companies such as Citibank and the Bank of New York Mellon. She holds an MA in economics from the Free University of Brussels and an MBA from Columbia Business School. Welcome, Dana Enundo Ferreira. Our third speaker has an MSc in Migration, Mobility and Development and a BA with honors in International Relations and Global Development. She's currently a migration and development consultant working with individuals, families, and organizations. She's an internationally certified speaker, teacher, and coach with the John Maxwell Group. She's the Vice President of Caribbean Farmers Without Borders, an organization fighting to accomplish regional food security. She's also an MP with State of African Diaspora. SOAD was created to offer African diaspora and African descendants a safe space, political and economic representation outside of their home countries. She works with organizations nationally and internationally, delivering socially conscious and culturally tailored programs for organizational reforms. She's the founding director of the Knowledge Project KIC, a youth development community interest company based in Leeds in the UK, which uses informal educational tools such as games and art to teach young people personal development and social skills like emotional intelligence and critical thinking. Welcome, Guilaine Brutus. Our final speaker this evening is an entrepreneur and ex-investment banking professional who's worked in multinational and leading investment institutions in the UK, US, and South Africa. She's 20 years experience in establishing successful business initiatives and managing investment funds. This includes her role as venture capitalist for an award-winning team at Close Brothers Group in the UK. She's passionate about art and has been collecting contemporary African and diaspora art for 20 years. In 2018, she founded Kiisa. In line with its vision, Kiisa provides innovative investment fund platforms and impact solutions that drive the growth, visibility, knowledge, and strategic advice, research, and due diligence on art patronage, business investment, and market positioning for a variety of businesses within the art ecosystem. She speaks on various international platforms discussing art as an alternative asset, art patronage and collection, and the impact of art investment funds on the global art sector. Welcome, Freda Isingoma. And now I'd like to welcome Alexandre Latour to the stage.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Vanessa, and welcome everyone. I'm going to show you a short animated video of an artwork brought to life with 3D technology from Haitian artist Mackennal Profile to help you quickly understand why it's important to bring visibility to Haitian and African artists. So I need to get your full attention. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. In the chat room, can you tell me, what do you feel? What do you see? And what do you feel? If you can put that in the chat room. Thank you, Vanessa. See some very peaceful images. Nature and life from Anna, peaceful community from Stella, humans and nature colleagues from Emma. Thank you, Roberta. She loves that. She feels Sequoia. She feels roots, ancestor, connecting, serenity, Zen, cycle. So much anthropomorphism, beautiful community, future of art. Thank you, everyone. That's really helpful, really insightful, really. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to give you my interpretation, if you may. Oops, sorry. I will give you my interpretation. For me, I see that nature is alive and that the artist wants to give us a strong message that to protect Mother Nature. I feel love, I feel passion, peace, a sense of connectedness. Thank you, Adelina. Haitian art is an invitation of new discovery and self-discovery. Haitian art is alive and is meaningful for humanity. I wanted to start this webinar with this video to show you that quality art and quality artists exist beyond what we normally see in the West, and that their impact on our lives and our minds is still yet to be explored. Over the years, I understood that art is a true asset for unfortunate countries like Haiti and can be a powerful lift for social and economic change, but its potential is underexploited and very marginalized. I understood that there is a huge opportunity to use art to transform lives, to unite people, and to advance our world. I wanted to use my personal experience to explain what this opportunity is and why is the right moment to promote these artists, collect their art, invest in them, and become their patron. When I moved to London in 2013, I visited many exhibitions and art fairs. What I noticed is that the art was very Western centric and that Haitian artists were not represented. So I did my research to understand why. To illustrate my analysis, I will take example from artists I represent and from artworks available in our catalog. I will take the example of Le Voix Exil to demonstrate that you can be a master in your own country, but it's difficult to reach the global art market when you live in Haiti. Le Voix Exil is born in 1944, is a self-taught artist and one of the founders of the Saint-Soleil world-famous art movement. It was acclaimed by André Malraux in his last book, Timelessness, 44 years ago in 1976, and was featured in CNN after the earthquake in 2010. He has exhibited in the US, France, Japan, and lately in the UK. His works has been collected by many. Now, Le Voix teaches young painters to ensure his legacy. But Le Voix, despite the quality of his art, is renowned, and his contribution to advanced creativity still struggle to live a decent life. Why? Because there isn't a market in Haiti. So he has to export himself to rich collectors, but he's limited because he's remote. Haiti is a land of artists, but 95% of them remain unknown. Most don't have connections with the outside, no financial means, no marketing skills, no proper phone, no internet access to promote their work. Most don't follow global commercial trend, but actually, why should they? They remain unknown also simply because they are from Haiti. Thousands of really talented artists across the world are under-recognized because the global market is elitist, conservative, and dominated by white male artists. Black artists represent only less than 5% of all artists promoted, and female artists less than a third. But things are changing. If number of sales and increase of pricing point of African and diaspora art, including Haitian art, grows at the predicted pace, which equals to 10% annually, then it does represent the new booming market. Therefore, my first conclusion is that it is timely to invest now in this still untapped market to precede newcomers. So there are forgotten artists like Le Voix Exil. There are also many genuine and aspiring masters. Let me give you the example of Kayava. Kayava is a young artist. His art is fresh, of high quality, and very unique, one of a kind. Kayava is also a self-taught artist, but has developed a very mature style. He has exhibited in Africa, in the US, and in the UK, and is recognized as one of the most talented artists in the Caribbean. Some of his works have been valued £30,000 by a professional appraiser, but it is currently sold 5 to 10 times less because we are still building his market. If I may make a comparison with Basquiat, Basquiat's father was Haitian. He sold one of his paintings entitled $4,000 in 1982. The same painting was sold $110 million 3 years ago. Kayava is not inspired by Basquiat, but both artists have found their inspiration into the Haitian spiritual identity. So my second conclusion is that the art of many quality artists in Africa, in Haiti, and in Africa remain really affordable, and their potential to grow in value is high, which represents an interesting and safe opportunity for new collectors and investors. Most of these artists are also intuitive and visionary artists. They produce inspirational, thought-provoking art. So now let me introduce Mackinac Profil. Mackinac Profil is a young self-taught artist. He has mainly exhibited in the US and in the UK. His work is intricate and is really appreciated. Mackinac has developed his own style, picturing surreal vision of Haiti where nature and humans live in synergy. His prophetic art proposes an alternative solution to solve our environmental and social issues. His art definitely affects our brain. According to the University of College of London, our blood flow increasing by 10% when we observe a profound piece of art. This increase leads us to an elevated state of consciousness, well-being, and better emotional health. As the University of Columbia refers, it is proven that people find inner peace and feel relaxed when they are surrounded by inspiring art. If I take my experience, I have been living with hundreds of Haitians over the past 4 years, and it had definitely changed me and led me to where I am today, being more peaceful, proactive, and determined. In this time of COVID and social political turbulences, is art, like many others, has the potential to heal our personal and collective wounds and bring us together. So my third conclusion is that it is very timely to promote the works of these artists, knowing that the health and wellness industry represents $5 trillion. So their art as a well-being solution will get its traction. Finally, life in Haiti is not easy, despite being a very beautiful country. Haiti faces recurrent several natural disasters, social, economic, and political disruptions. 2/3 of the population, almost 7 million, live with less than $2 a day. 2/3 of the population don't have a formal job. Only 50% of children attend school, and the health structures are very limited and not free even for the poorest. Our artists live in very difficult situations. For instance, Mackinac Profile, who has 3 young children who live in the slums of Port-au-Prince, had to migrate last year to the US on his own and far from his 3 kids to find a job because he can't live from his art and pay for education, medicines, and food for his family. Our artists are also drivers of hope and change in their communities. For instance, Kayava runs workshops for children to improve their creative skills. His ambition is to create a community art center to provide a space for enjoying and learning arts. But this is a cost Kayava can't take if it doesn't sell regularly. These artists should be championed, sustained, and protected. So when we buy a painting or when we become their patron, it's not only beneficial for them to further their practice, but it's also beneficial for their family and their community. So my fourth and final question is that by supporting these artists trading their art and becoming self-sufficient, we improve the lives of many and we make a big social impact. Thank you. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you very much, Alex, for that beautiful presentation. There's so many lovely comments coming through in the chat. If you have a question for Alex about Haitian art, please pop it in the Q&A. So from the opportunity in Haiti to Africa and the diaspora, I'd like to welcome Dana Enundo to the stage. Hello, Dana.
Hello, Vanessa.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
So Dana, could you describe the state of the market today regarding Africa and the diaspora art?
Sure. Today, and after about 20 years of more or less successful attempts, African contemporary art is finally capturing the hearts and minds of international collectors and experts. Over the past few years, it has definitely grown in popularity in the global art scene, and there's an increasing appetite for it, and a surge of price for some of the artists that is generating interest from art experts and enthusiasts alike. However, it still represents only 1 to 3% of the global art market that is estimated to $64 billion, according to the last report. And so there's still a lot of room to grow. And I just want to mention also, like, one thing to note, though, is that when we're talking about African art or African contemporary art, we often include art from the diaspora as well, including art from Haiti as well. Why? And why I do that myself, I think it's because also it feels like the diaspora feels like kind of like a natural inclusion or a natural extension of Africa in a way. Both regions have experienced similar histories and challenges in many ways, from the colonization to political turmoil to socioeconomic challenge or recognition in the art world, there's many similarities between the two that is often reflected in the art itself. That's why it often seems hard to separate the two of them, as they often tell somehow a similar story. So both combined in still a very much emerging market, but with a lot of potential, but also a lot of challenges.
Thank you. So you speak about challenges. What challenges do artists and players in this market face?
So yeah, despite the surge of interest in recent years, this emerging market faces a lot of obstacles, some of the most apparent being visibility issues, infrastructure issues, and information issues. All of those issues resulting in the fact that still today, in 2020, there's no easy way to find and buy art from Africa and the diaspora. It's still very much localized. For example, what's happening in the art scene in Nigeria is often not known at all in Kenya, for example, or in Egypt. And same with the diaspora. What's happening in the art scene in Haiti is not known actually in Africa or in the Dominican Republic. The information doesn't really flow. And if we go on and dig a little deeper to the issues that I mentioned, so first, and as we mentioned before, it's an area of the market that has been historically underrepresented. And even today, with the progress that have been made, there's still a clear lack of strong gallery representation and a limited number of museum or institution where you can properly discover or view or experience the art. But also there is very little to no information about this type of art, about its history, about its context. There isn't much to educate oneself and become a smarter collector or buyers or more informed buyers. And finally, even if you know what you would want, the lack of infrastructure makes it very difficult to access. Maybe, and even in like big Western art hubs like London, Paris, New York, only a tiny percentage of the art makes it to those like hubs, and it's often targeted to a very small, specific, high net worth individual like segment. So all of this kind of contributes to a slow growth of the collector base, which is, however, necessary, completely necessary for this market to thrive. There are a lot of progress that are made, and but there's also a lot of opportunities for growth.
Right. Okay. So it's experiencing some growth now, but what are the opportunities for growth?
Well, there are many. There really are many. I believe we're just scratching the surface now. And as I said, it's like just really an emerging, almost nascent market. So there's so many things that can be done. And I think the main goal at this point, at this stage, should be to make sure that we create the basis and the infrastructure for the market to not just be a trend in the artwork that is going to be like for a few years and then we're going to move on to the next, but to actually really pose the basis to ensure that a sustainable growth of the market in the long run. And this can be done in many ways. For example, like Pavillon 54, we aim to make the market of arts from Africa and the diaspora a cornerstone of the market by increasing artist exposure, investing in education, and expanding the collector base. So talking about the artists, first and foremost, as Alexandre just has mentioned before, like and it has shown to us, there's absolutely no shortage of talent across Africa and the diaspora or Haiti. So any initiatives that works towards improving the visibility and the exposure of those incredible artists is very valuable. Second, there's also a tremendous need to fill the information void about this art and give people enough tools and resources and knowledge to feel comfortable when buying it. Building data, databases, reports, story, like publication, all of those things. We really need to start documenting this art, those artists, the histories, the context around it. This has not, like, historically not really been done, and it's important to start now. to help user become smarter buyers or collector and to feel less intimidated by it. So I really do believe that education is a must to help grow the market. And finally, expanding the market. Very important. As mentioned earlier, the African and diaspora market still represent a tiny little drop in the ocean of the art market. And it's only invested mainly by a very small group of very knowledgeable or established collector. And I do believe that one way to fast track this growth is to increase the base of collectors around the world. And for instance, growing the collector base within Africans, the diaspora or Afro descent is going to be very important. There are millions of Africans or Afro descents around the world that are educated, well-traveled, have disposable income, are proud of their heritage, and would want to contribute to the cultural development of the continent or their country, and to bring just like a different narrative and a more positive image about it. Now, the thing is, like, they might often not be familiar with the art markets. But I do believe that with the right guidance, the right education, the right price points, they would start collecting and buy occasional piece. And to just make a parallel to another market, if we take the market like the Chinese art market, which at the beginning of the century was also pretty much emerging the way the African market and diaspora market are emerging today. And now 20 years after, fast forward, it's the third biggest market in the world. And how did that happen? Because people started because the Chinese people, the Asian people started investing in their own art, because they created the infrastructure that worked for their market and built this ecosystem that was necessary. And today, probably in the next few years, they might even become the second biggest market in the world. So there are definitely opportunities for all as well. And most of those opportunities that I just mentioned have mostly been untapped until now. And we have to also mention that today's technology and the digital age allow us to do it at a much larger scale and to a global reach. So that's why, at least at Pavillon 54, we have decided to invest in the digital space to create that ecosystem. But that's definitely represent even more opportunities for the future to grow this market.
Excellent. So how and what can someone do to get involved and mobilize towards the goal to broaden the market for underrepresented artists?
There are several routes, and I think I first want to address one of the biggest misconception about being involved in the art market. A lot of people believe that to start collecting art or being involved, you need to be a very wealthy individual to do so, and that's not the case at all. You can start with and you can start collecting very great art with the budget that you have, no matter what it is. And especially with art from Africa and the diaspora, which, as Alexandre mentioned earlier, is still very affordable for the most part. So it's actually the right time to invest now, when the prices are affordable and are set to be growing. And I think you can and you can also help the market in many ways. So definitely buying, supporting, investing in the art, educating yourself, and sharing, and kind of spreading the love around it. No matter where you are, as I said, not everybody needs to be a syndicat de colo. And I want to mention him as well. In the case of African art, is a fellow Congolese, just like me. I got a chance to get to know him, to meet him and his family, and what he has done for the continent is huge. For the African art, for the restitution of traditional art, for just setting it in the scene of the high level. It's just invaluable, and we just hope that there will be more people within Africa and the diaspora that can follow its footsteps to help the market grow and to help change that narrative across about Africa. So those are just options. There are many more, and I'm sure that our other panelists are going to explore most of it.
Thank you so much, Dana, for your insights. We really appreciate you being here tonight. And now I'd like to welcome Alexandre to the stage. Alex, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Oh my God, sorry again. Sorry, everyone. Thank you, Dana, and thank you, Vanessa. So we welcome on board Guilaine, who is Haitian. She lives in the UK, and she is doing migration and development work with people in Haiti. So thank you, Guilaine. Guilaine, why is creativity so important for and in Haitian society?
Well, thank you, Alex. Thank you for having me on. Well, in the words of a well-known Haitian writer and poet, Franck Etienne, when I look at what is happening in Haiti, this overflowing of life is the principal source of my creation. Haiti is said to be the richest country in the Western Hemisphere aesthetically, with the greatest outpouring of artists and art. I believe this outpouring of creativity is intrinsically linked to the culture and religion. Although this creativity is not limited to Haitians, all Native peoples with limited access to development, innovation, economics tend to find alternative ways of expressing their lived experiences. Haitians believe that the dead are always present and the lois and the ancestors are always around communicating and protecting them. You will see evidence of spirituality in the art because spirituality underpins all aspects of their culture. So how else can they show respect and homage to the ancestors and the spirits if not through creative expressions? Creativity is also important because it serves as a form of escapism, some artists say, a way to enter imagined spaces, away from social chaos around them. We see this in the fantasy landscape from artists like Brazil, Saint-Ville, Montelis, or art portraying African jungle scenes like those of Gali Altidore. Creative people will always seek and find beauty, even in the most destitute circumstances. Every single form of art that comes from Haiti, Haitian creators, is a form of communication that compels others to look, to listen, to investigate their social situations. So I believe creativity is not intrinsically Haitian, but it is human. And I think that the one thing that makes Haiti so creative is its social circumstances and its religion and everything that goes along with it. And some of these responses were from artists that I've worked with and I've worked with over the years. Creativity is a universal human trait. It reflects and is affected by the times in which we live, society, culture, our economic class, the economic class that the artist works from. If you are not creative in some countries, you would die of hunger. You must do something.
Really interesting. Thank you, Guilaine. So now, we know and we understand that Haitian art, like African art, is really creative, and they go deeper into their spirituality and their roots, their identity. How can we use Haitian art to create positive social change or impact?
Well, there are many ways we can use Haitian art to create change. We can do this by putting a human face to the art. You do that a lot by telling the story of the artist that is, that you're selling. So we put a human face and a story to the art we promote. By highlighting the social change that purchasing a piece of art will ensure, this ensures that the art is promoted, that the art is appreciated, that people have value in it, value in the process. For instance, for a primary school child in Haiti to go for the year to primary school, it can cost between 170 to 270 American dollars for the entire year. So a piece of art that you buy from one of these artists is actually ensuring, a positive social change within their lives. And not to mention the artists that you've spoken about that have started organizations and community organizations that are helping other children. It has a ripple effect within the community. We can create change by using art to change the negative narrative held on the country, its people, its history, and its culture. And this is very important in the case of Haiti. We know that during the US occupation, what came out of the US occupation was this whole zombie movie phenomenon. You know, association, you know, the zombie, the reincarnation of someone that has died before is all linked to the US invasion of Haiti during the 1930s. So the movies that came out of that showcased this demonic, it demonized the country and its entire culture and its religion. We can do this by supporting artists, by introducing them to modern forms of art creation through student or artist exchange programs with universities and galleries abroad. We can have exchange program where we have a student in fine art in the UK that goes to Haiti and a student from art school in Haiti that comes to the UK. These exchange programs allow them to visit new countries and see new forms of art. And new technology and new things that are being done because they're isolated from some of these economically. Those are some of the ways we can help Haitian artists help to change and make positive change within their communities and their lives.
Thank you, Guilaine. Thank you. Dana touched the fact that diaspora as well, African diaspora can help as well. I mean, in the ways they can help African art and African artists to have more visibility. You are from the diaspora as well in the UK. So what responsibilities do you think that the diaspora have in the promotion of Haitian art?
Well, I've always had a slogan, I'm a migrant, I'm a diaspora, and I'm an ambassador. So I believe that migrants and diasporas, that they must become brand ambassadors for their cultures and their countries. We must play a role in promoting who we are, what we are, our language, our culture, our religion, everything has to be positively promoted in the way we live in other countries, in other spaces. We need to provide clarity and understanding of our culture. It's our responsibility to demystify Haiti in the eyes of the world and in its culture, especially the negative literature and films that portray its beliefs and cultures as superstitious, as demonizing and creating this atmosphere of anti-Haitianness. And if you speak to anyone in the rest of the Caribbean, especially the Lesser Antilles, not much has been, not many people know a lot about Haiti, especially, I mean, thinking Haiti is in the Caribbean, but a lot of the other Caribbean islands don't know much about Haiti. All they know is that Haitians do voodoo. You know, that's it. Haitians do voodoo. And this is why they're being punished. This is why they're being punished with natural disaster. This is why they're being punished with poverty, because they do voodoo. And nothing, you know, I remember growing up, I grew up in an English-speaking Caribbean island. I remember growing up there and they were like, so do they have cars in Haiti? You're like 35 minutes by plane away from the country. And this is the question that's being asked. So you have, even though you might have this negative portrayal internationally, to have the same thing in the Caribbean itself is, you know, it's a call for action. I think we need to use our networks and our platforms. We need to lend a voice to the Haitian artists and increase their international exposure, like Dana just said earlier. It is our responsibility to do that. Because we're in the West, we have access to huge networks and possibilities. We are on platforms, we are musicians, we are actors, we have PhDs, we are professors. We need to use those platforms and represent our cultures as brand ambassadors.
Thank you, Guilaine. That was really, really nice. Really nice talk. I think like we can use Haitian art as well to channel the positive image of Haiti. Thank you, Guilaine. Up to you, Vanessa. Thank you. It was really, really insightful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. And thank you, Guilaine, for your insights. And now I'd like to welcome, really warmly welcome Freda Isingoma to the stage. Welcome, Freda.
Thank you, Vanessa. I'm really excited about being here, so thank you for inviting me.
We're very excited to have you, especially when you joined at 1 minute to 5. We're all very happy. Thank you. So Freda, who do you see as emerging collectors within Africa and the diaspora space?
Yeah, emerging collectors. I mean, I was actually on a talk, just now, just talking about myself as a collector. As you mentioned in the beginning, I've been collecting for 20 years. I started collecting because I love art, always have. It's a part of who I am, so living with art was a natural step. But what I'm seeing now, is collectors, particularly in the African and diaspora space, collecting for two main reasons. A lot of collectors are asking me, potential collectors asking me questions about cultural equity. So a lot of it is actually just being part of your cultural narrative, being part of your cultural development. And of course, art is part of that. So that's emerging as well. There's a lot of investor collectors coming up in the African and diaspora space, getting involved, actually wanting to collect because they've seen the potential value opportunity within art. And I think the two kinds of, collectors are great for the market, because you have the ones collecting for cultural equity, because it's very much a pride in your heritage and culture, very much like Dana and Guilaine have talked about. And, there's this phrase by an artist, and I actually wrote it down. She says, art is able to do something that language can't do. And we, as Africans and the diaspora, very much what Guilaine talked about, there's always this sort of perception of our culture, of our traditions, of our religions, and art, you see artists producing work that very much speaks to who we are. And a lot of people are realizing the value of actually collecting art because of that, because it talks to you in a way that actually you can't convey otherwise in words. And that's very beautiful. So I think the two can exist. I think it's great that people are starting to see that actually art is a viable asset and it's worth collecting as an investment, but that doesn't take away the fact that a lot of people are actually collecting because they see the beauty in art and see it as a part of collecting, part of their culture.
Thank you very much. I know this is your second panel today, so we're blessed. I can personally attest to the fact how art can have a profound impact on the self, but the idea of value is by its nature subjective. So how would you explain the concept of value in the art world?
Oh, yes, value in the art world. I mean, when people talk about value, money is a dirty word in the art world. That's one thing I realized. And it's so funny because I come from an investment banking background where money is the word, and they talk very openly about value and about money. And when, I decided to start Kiisa and venture into the art world, I found out even though art is an asset and it's a valuable asset, and whether it's investment-wise or intrinsically, it's still valuable as an asset. Not many people actually just want to talk about the value side of it. But, I'm very much, open to talking about the value of art as an asset and investment-wise. I mean, if you look at the value, just talking about art as a viable alternative asset, I think there are a few clear indicators, and I think we've seen that this year when 10 years after the last global economic slowdown, we saw what happened there. We're experiencing it now in real time, is that art holds its value over time. And it's very much the great thing about the art market is that it's very lowly correlated to the traditional equity markets and bond markets. And I think we're going to see that, although the sentiment globally has gone down for pretty much everything, I think like 2010, we're going to see the art market rebound pretty quickly. What's encouraging to see is that there's been a great online response, and I think that's helped increase the transparency, because art is not a very liquid asset. But I think with the sort of like really the onslaught of online platforms, and some of them even trading platforms, and it's wonderful what Dana's doing, because it actually makes art more tradable, and particularly African and diaspora art, which is beautiful, is that we're going to, it's increasing the transparency, which I think in effect will actually increase the reputation of art as a viable asset as well. And what people forget is art is a working asset. You know, if you own a piece as a collector, you can actually have it work for you by being, you know, being part of exhibitions, whether that's in institutions or whether that's outside of institutions. It's a working asset. It can earn you some revenue, but even if it doesn't, it gets provenance, which also adds to its value as well, which a lot of collectors don't know and they should get more involved in, because by offering your art to be in certain exhibitions also increases the visibility of the art as well, which is great. And you get to talk about some of the narratives within African and diaspora art, which I think is important at this sort of emerging stage of the market too.
Excellent. So you say no one speaks about money in the art world, but what kind of financial returns can an investor expect when investing in art?
Yes, so this is why people don't speak about the money in the art world. I mean, if I look at some of the numbers, I'm very much a data person, which the art world sort of doesn't have much data, but if you look at some of the numbers, and I've talked about the last downturn, which was obviously 2008-9, when there was a global economic slowdown, but from 2009 to 2019, the art sales have gone up 62%, and this is literally versus the MSCI index of 23% and the FTSE 100 of 32%, I think. So art has massively outperformed these markets. But on an individual level, I mean, if you're looking at buying investment in art, it depends on the artist. A lot of the value is in the artist itself rather than actually the piece of art. And I think that's what some people don't know. It's about investing in the artist and also following their, you know, the trajectory of their career. And if you look at some artists, which, you know, a lot of the artists within our space are emerging, but you're beginning to see them break through on the local stage, also on the international stage, being collected by bigger collectors, but also starting to get institutional recognition, and some of them obviously being collected with institutions, which as well changes the price.
Thank you, Freda. So talking about patronage, can you describe a fine example of a patron and the impact they had on the art and artists? So Dana mentioned Sindika.
Yeah.
What legacy did Sindika leave?
I mean, Sindika was a wonderful patron of the arts, and it's such a shame for us to lose him. I think it was felt very much by the contemporary African art space, his loss, and I hope that more patrons can step forward and fill his spot. I mean, he gave contemporary artists a stage, you know, he gave them the visibility, he championed exhibitions locally and internationally. He helped very much build up the art infrastructure in Angola as well. And this is a kind of role that, you know, collectors can really play in building up the narratives, but also the ecosystem of African and diaspora art. And he played that part. There are other patrons, and I'm seeing this sort of new form of patronage. And when people think of patronage, they think of sort of donating to an institution and being part of that. But, you know, in Africa and the diaspora, there are many parts of being a patron. You could literally buy paints and canvas for an artist. You could get involved by helping them to pay for a residency, for example, in a different country. Also, you can just be a brand ambassador for the artists. And if you know curators, talk about the artists in those spaces. And what Alexandre is doing with AYITI is great, and he's giving people the accessibility to artists to be able to support those artists, because even buying their work is being a patron, and showing their work and being proud of their work is a great form of patronage that everybody can get involved in.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Freda. Yes, thank you again for your time and insights. Now at 11 minutes to 6, we are starting to close the session, and we'd like to move to Q&A session now. So we have some excellent questions coming through from people, And what I might do is just, oh, this one's got 3 votes. Thank you, Ellie Anderson. That's an amazing question. So Ellie says, what I see Alexandre and Dana speaking about is the art market with humanity and something that's lacking worldwide. What innovative and creative strategies that straddles culturally sensitive issues do you think need to take place to ensure its sustainability? Stay blessed. Thank you, Ellie. Alexandre, if I can start off with you.
Unmute. Yeah. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Ellie, for your questions. What innovation, what a creative strategy we can, yeah. I mean that it's connected to patronage as well, and we need to build a network of patrons that support artists on the long term until the time artists can become self-sufficient. And I agree with you. We need to put more humanity in what we're doing, because art, behind the art, there's an artist, and investing in art is investing in people. We invest in artists. We build their capacity for people to be self-sufficient on a longer period. So being innovative is being sure that any commitment we have with a artist that lasts for a 3 or 4 or 5 years period, I guess. Dana, I guess you may have an answer.
Sure. No, thank you, Ellie, for the question. This is a great question. I think it brings me back again to kind of like the education and the change of narrative. I think it's very important, as you say, to tell the story about African art or diaspora art with a different tone, with a different mindset, not always seeing it as just like a product of something exotic from the West, but actually something that comes with like stories, with deep roots and cultural influences and a lot of story background. So bringing those stories forward, the stories of the artists, the stories of the countries, I think is going to be very important in changing the image that it has. And when it comes to innovative ways to do it, there are so many. And I think one way to think about innovation is not always like to completely do something crazy and different, but just the idea of like establishing a market that speaks to like locally, that speaks to Africans, to the diaspora, build a market and build infrastructures that work for us, and not just copying the model that is known or that is important from the West, is also going to be an innovative way to think about it, and something that is set to hopefully produce better results.
Thank you, Dana. Freda, would you have a view? Freda might have a view on this question.
No, I think they've answered pretty much what I would say.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Guilaine, would you like to add anything?
I think the only thing I would add is to also include the diversity of the art. I think we're presenting on paintings and things like that, but then when you look at furniture and you look at tapestry and you look at, I mean, just decorating a home, all the things that you have to put into it, and it's so artistic. And some of these statues and the sofas, the material used, all of that is artistic. And I think if we diversify it, it promotes the artists. If we diversify it in the sense of putting it on books, on journals, on, you know, there's so many ways that we can promote the art and the artists and the things that are happening in these countries, where it can go in, it can be included in the lives of everyone. I mean, you might not want to buy a painting and stick it on your wall, but you want a centerpiece or you want a sofa, you know, and I think doing something like that is also a way to join the market.
Yes, I think if I may add, Vanessa and Guilaine, we need to bring art out of the gallery space, and that's what we want as well, because this art is really alive and he's meaningful, and many people don't know about the art world, don't know about the gallery, but they know about art and they feel about art, and that's what we want to give as a message as well. Art is about feelings, and if we manage to bring art be on the gallery space or be on the museum space, and that will be an innovation. That's where we would like to go and put this art into public spaces.
Thank you, Alexandra. And that kind of leads really nicely onto Stella Kajambo Lee's question. Thank you, Stella, for your question. Stella's a young creative, and I know the focus of this event is not for young creatives, it's more about art investing, but she's asking how to gain visibility for young artists. She's a Malawian living in the UK, and she's looking for visibility. So I'm sure you guys have some tips for Stella.
Can I chime in? Yeah, no, I saw her question. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's the great thing is that we're living in the age of technology. And I think, you know, I've seen a lot of creators, a lot of artists sort of get visibility literally by creating online platforms. And, you know, they're out there like Instagram, or whether you can write. I see that, Stella, you want to write about artists. So I would say, you know, the way you can facilitate sort of the visibility and eventually get funding so people can actually see what you're doing and what the story that you're trying to create with your platform is to create the visibility on the online platforms and consistency with that. So that when you do approach people, that they actually understand the values of what you're trying to achieve. So that's a sort of main tip that I would have for you. Get out there, do it, start it, create that visibility, and particularly for the artist's work. The great thing is with a lot of online platforms is the artists can get to talk about the meaning behind their work, the philosophy behind their work, and the practice behind it, whether it's through written words or whether it's through a video. And that makes a difference, particularly if artists then want to be seen by galleries as well. The galleries will need to understand their work, the practice of their work, how often they produce, etc., which you can start doing with your platform. So that would be what I would advise in terms of getting eventual funding for your platform.
And I'd just like to maybe add to it. I agree, and I know that like what has Stella mentioned, doing it by alone or by yourself is really hard to do, especially at this stage. As I said, like the market has never been properly documented. So I think it's going to be a collective effort. And I know that, like, for example, Freda and I have been discussing about it for a long time. At the stage the market is at today, it needs a lot of people contributing at the same time. So as you're developing your platform, like surround yourself and go out there and talk about it and meet new people. I think it really is going to be a collective effort to work on like building all this information about artists, about the different markets, about the regional or country differences. So in our case, for example, like feel free to shoot me an email, because we are always looking forward to develop new content that helps everybody understand the like African arts or from specific country better. So feel free to shoot us a line.
I'd like to come in with that collective effort and lending our platform. We have the only Haitian restaurant in London, the Grill Shack and Tiki Bar. And on its walls, we've hung paintings by various artists who actually live in London, and they just leave a painting on the wall. If someone asks, about it, then we have context for the artist. So we've done that. And for several times we've had events for artists. When we have our Soup Jumu, which is the 1st of January pumpkin soup, we have our events for Christmas. When we have our events, sometimes we include artists and we have activities. So we lend our spaces to people that are up and coming who don't have the financial backing to have their own spaces, and we lent our walls to them. So our walls are filled with Haitian art from all over the world.
Thank you, Guilaine, Dana, and Freda. There you go, Stella. Great that you joined tonight. Godspeed. May God be with you. I'm going to close the Q&A now and hand over to Alexandra for the close. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for everyone to participate into our first event. It was really insightful. If I may take, I mean, we cover lots of subjects and we can't go deeper into everything, but I guess we will have several events as well. A collaborative approach of several events to detail more, to go more in details about each subject. But if I may take, as a final conclusion, if I may take my experience to conclude, for the past 4 years, I've been a patron seeking to build a market for these artists and raise their visibility. But I understood that their art is truly beneficial for our world and still constitute an untapped financial resource. It is necessary to evolve our understanding of art and see its potential. Art should be considered as a vital need for each human being and for humanity in the reconstruction of a new world. Art has the power to heal, to connect people, and to empower lives. With 60 billion of sales and 4% of annual growth, the global art market should seize this opportunity to have a larger and deeper impact on our society. The global demand of more diversity, more inclusion, the search of well-being and connectedness offer us a unique opportunity to highlight and leverage the value of art. I believe we need to build a new collaborative and sustainable economic model of patronage for artists. And I believe that everyone who is interested in art, tech, and impact investing can support this process. So thank you, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed and learned something today. I'm inviting people who are interested to be ahead of the game and be involved to contact me after this event. I'm also inviting you to go onto our platform, AYITIGallery.com, and dazzle your beloved for with Haitian art for Christmas, because we have 20% offer on all collection until mid-December only. A big thank you to our speakers, and thank you everyone for your participation. Have a lovely and joyful evening, always surrounded by art. Thank you. Bye-bye.